Welcome back to The Explainer, Focus Learners. Today we're going to decode the fascinating mechanics behind what makes a retail organization truly thrive. Seriously, if you've ever found yourself wondering how these massive retail chains ensure that everyone, from the newest cashier on the floor all the way up to the regional director, knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to unpack the absolute critical difference between floor-level training and executive development based on our source material today.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We're going to cover 1. Understanding retail training. 2. The importance of training. 3. Methods of employee training. 4. Defining executive development. 5. Steps to develop leaders. And finally, 6. Methods of development. We'll start on the store floor and then pivot all the way up to the corporate level.
So let's kick things off with Section 1, Understanding Retail Training, the floor level.
Now, when we talk about training, the absolutely key words you need to remember here are short-term and technical. Training is this highly systematic process that kicks off the literal minute an employee clocks in on day one. And the whole goal? It's to bridge that gap between a brand new hire's existing knowledge and the precise step-by-step operational skills the store actually needs them to have. Just think of a new cashier, right? Training is what guarantees they can scan, bag, and process your payments without holding up the entire line.
Moving right along to Section 2, the importance of training, building the foundation.
So why does all this tactical stuff matter so much? Well, human resources are incredibly unique. They're basically the only resource that actually appreciates over time if you take care of them. When you invest in training, you're transforming unskilled workers into confident experts, which obviously skyrockets productivity. But honestly, it's not just about speed. Well-trained floor staff naturally collaborate so much better because everyone knows their specific role, the daily chaos is minimized, and employee morale gets a massive boost. They just feel genuinely capable of handling whatever walks through those sliding doors.
That brings us to Section 3, Methods of Employee Training, on the job versus off the job.
So how do they actually get these skills? It basically boils down to learning in the heat of the moment versus learning in a totally controlled environment. On-the-job training is literally just learning by doing. Think coaching or direct supervision, where a senior staff member is watching and correcting a junior employee right there on a packed sales floor. On the flip side, off-the-job training happens entirely away from the actual work floor, like an apprenticeship where you earn while you learn, or a classic classroom setup designed to drill down on broader product knowledge. Let's zero in on a really cool, highly specific, off-the-job method from the sources, vestibule training. Okay, imagine a massive holiday sale is coming up. The store is going to be absolute bedlam. Instead of just throwing a terrified new hire straight into the fire, retailers set up what's called a vestibule. It's basically a back room with actual point-of-sale machines hooked up. Trainees get to practice ringing up items in this totally safe sandbox, which drastically reduces early mistakes and, honestly, saves everyone a whole lot of stress. All right, so we've got the floor staff covered. But wait, how do we build retail leaders? How do we take someone who's an absolute rock star at the register and turn them into someone who can run an entire region? To answer that, we have to make a massive pivot in how we're thinking. We're completely stepping away from those immediate, short-term operational instructions and looking straight at future-oriented growth. Development, unlike training, is a long-term, ongoing journey. It totally ditches the technical checklists and focuses entirely on conceptual and theoretical knowledge, designed exclusively for managerial personnel. Which naturally leads us to Section 4, Defining Executive Development, the strategic level. Executive development is, at its core, all about succession planning. Retail executives today are facing incredibly complex challenges, right? We're talking negotiating with labor unions, managing grievance redressals, navigating crazy fast socioeconomic changes, and dealing with new public policies. You literally cannot just train someone to handle those kind of nuances in a Tuesday afternoon workshop. They require deep conceptual development to manage everything effectively and make sure the organization actually have the leadership it's going to need 5 or 10 years down the line. And why is this so absolutely crucial? Well, if you follow the retail industry at all, you know it's notorious for an incredibly high attrition rate. People bounce all the time. Executive development is basically your ultimate antidote to that turnover, because when you invest heavily in an employee's personal growth, they stay. Plus, having a truly robust development program acts like a magnet for ambitious external talent. Ultimately, bringing together a well-developed executive team drives organizational growth and secures that competitive edge everyone's looking for. Let's look at how they do it in Section 5, Steps to develop leaders, the succession plan.
According to the sources, it is a very rigorous 5-step journey for HR departments. First, they do an analysis. What exact leadership is the company going to need in the future? Second, they appraise current managerial talent to see how today's performance stacks up against those ambitious growth plans. Third is the inventory, literally tracking data on existing executives, right down to their willingness to relocate. Fourth, they establish specific programs tailored to those exact gaps. And finally, step 5, they relentlessly evaluate those programs to make sure they're actually getting a return on their investment.
And finally, Section 6, Methods of Development, Forging the Future.
How do you actually stretch a leader's conceptual thinking? Well, look at these methods. You'll notice they're totally different from that on-the-job floor training we saw earlier. Sure, we have lectures and seminars, which are great for theory. But the real magic? That happens in case studies. Think Harvard Business School style. Executives get handed real, incredibly complex organizational situations. They have to find the root causes, develop alternatives, and prioritize resources to pick the best possible solution. It literally forces them to act as high-level strategic decision-makers.
Now, a particularly fascinating method mentioned in the text is sensitivity training. It's this deep psychological approach often used to fix really ingrained behavioral issues. It's a 3-step process. First, unfreezing old values, basically making the leader painfully aware that their current habits aren't cutting it. Second, developing the new values through guided interactions. And third, refreezing by practicing these new behaviors back in the workplace. Sometimes they'll even drop an executive into a totally different department just to force a hard reset on how they act.
And finally, let's look at a simulation exercise like roleplay. To kind of ground this whole abstract concept back into our relatable retail setting, imagine an existing manager creating a shadow floor manager out of a really capable team member. This aspiring leader gets specific roles, responsibilities, and tough emotional scenarios to act out. It's a completely safe space for them to mess up and practice essential communication and conflict resolution skills before they officially get the big managerial title.
So, as we wrap up our explainer today, I really want to leave you with this final thought based on everything we've just unpacked. Training fixes today, development builds tomorrow. So ask yourself about your own organization. Are you guys just surviving on the floor right now with short-term training, or are you actively developing the executives who are going to navigate the complexities of tomorrow? Definitely something to chew on, focused learners. Thanks for joining me today to explore these concepts, and as always, keep learning.